It can be very confusing when you're buying a home in Saskatchewan of what lending institution should you use or which professional should you address. Should you be talking to your banker, credit union, or a mortgage broker? This week on the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast, I am going to do my best job to give you a pros and cons list of each of these entities. Hope you enjoy.
This is the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast, the show that highlights Saskatchewan real estate. Looking to buy your first house, your next investment property? Subscribe to never miss an episode. Here's your host, Ron Caroni.
Welcome back to the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Ron Caroni. Here on the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast, we touch on all things Saskatchewan real estate with weekly videos aired every single Monday. If you're looking for more content just like this, do us a favor and hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoy this episode, please do us a favor and hit the like button. When someone is buying a home, it is hard to know exactly what is the best lender, institution, person that you should be approaching in order to get the best mortgage rate and product. Lots of articles and lots of opinions online. For full disclosure, I am a mortgage associate in Saskatchewan, so I'm obviously a little biased while going through this list, but I'll do my best to give you an honest breakdown of what I think of the pros and cons of credit unions, banks, and mortgage brokers. Let's get into it. Let's start off with credit unions and the pros list. When I talk to real estate investors in Saskatchewan, a lot of them are dealing with credit unions. The reason being is the rental count for houses can be a lot higher at different credit unions, and they have a lot more specialty products for a lot of mortgages at once. Another pro of a credit union is more common sense lending. There are times where you have a borrower in a small town who works a specific job, and the only person who really understands that position is someone at the local credit union. They are much more likely to do what is called common sense lending, or they'll take a story, and because it doesn't necessarily fit in a box at a bank or another monoline lender, they're willing to do the deal because it makes sense for them. Something that I come across a lot in Saskatchewan is people who want to build their dream home, whether it be on the lake or on that perfect acreage that they've picked out. Now, as a mortgage associate, a lot of my options in the construction lending standpoint are limited, or they're not going to be as good as what you're going to find at banks or credit unions. And what I find is credit unions typically have a very diverse range of build mortgages, and it does help people to get into those properties with different parameters at different interest rates. And this kind of touches on my first point, is that credit unions are a little bit more flexible in their common sense strategy, but they're also lenders in small towns where there are not other institutional banks or lenders, which means that they're much more likely to lend in small towns where they exist. And they kind of do take that common sense approach to different properties that they're looking at purchasing, and just various aspects of small town living in Saskatchewan that might only be able to be funded by a local credit union. The con for a credit union is that they might not always have the best mortgage rates and mortgage products. Now, I'm not saying this as a catch-all, in that you're never going to find a really good interest rate at a credit union, or there might not be a really good term or product that they're offering. But I would say in general, they're going to be limited with the amount of great rates they're going to be offered, because there's just going to be less of them. So I would say typically with credit unions, you're not going to get your best mortgage rate. Let's talk about the big banks and the pros for them. So a big pro for big banks is they do have a wide array of different products for new Canadians and business for self-owners. Now, this isn't particular to all banks, but I would say that if you can shop around to each individual bank, there's going to be a wide array of products and things that are available for you. This would be, if you're falling under the term of business for self or new to Canada, there's going to be some programs that are very specific to a big bank that you're not going to find anywhere else. Another pro of a bank, and maybe this is coming from the mortgage broker standpoint, there are times when you look at a mortgage that was done by a big bank and you're not really sure how they got it done, how they were able to self-structure within their own institution in order to get the file to go through. So I do think there is some opportunity sometimes at big banks for creativity and the ability to get a tough file done. Let's talk about the cons of big banks. And the biggest thing you're going to want to watch out for is posted rates and how they relate to your prepayment penalties if you break your mortgage. Now, what you want to watch out for is banks offer you a discount when you go to get your mortgage rate. And so they take that off their posted rate. But when they calculate their prepayment penalties, they are not calculating it off the discount. They're doing it off of the posted rate. And how those interest rate differential penalties are calculated are the posted rate versus the rate that exists when you break your mortgage and the amount of time left in your term. And sometimes these can be in the tens of thousands of dollars. So you really want to understand your prepayment penalty math and be very sure of yourself that you're not going to have to break your mortgage contract early with these big banks if you are taking a mortgage there. Another con of a big bank is they might make you shop around in order to get the best rate. And what I mean is if you're meeting with a mortgage specialist or someone at the bank and they say, hey, we cannot get this rate for you, but if you're able to show us another lender or another institution that is willing to offer you this mortgage rate, we'll go ahead and get that discount in for you. And so the reason that I think this is a negative or a con is that you could also just work with a mortgage broker who's automatically going to find you that best rate and not make you put extra legwork in. This is just an extra step they're adding to borrowers. And they're also happy that if you say, no worries, I'm not going to bother going out and doing that extra step of looking for that better rate, you'll just take the rate that's offered and it's not going to be as good as what can be found on the open market. One thing to watch out for when you go to your local bank or your local credit union is that you're actually meeting with a mortgage specialist. There are times when you go to a bank or credit union where you're dealing with a person who hasn't specifically been trained in mortgage transactions. At this point, you definitely need to make sure you're dealing with a professional who understands rate, prepayment penalties, prepayment privileges, and all the things that go into determining whether a mortgage is right for you. So ensure that you're dealing with at least a mortgage specialist at a bank or credit union. The last thing I'll mention on big banks is collateral charge. Now, this can also fall under the pro column, but I'll also add it as a con as well, and that a lot of big banks' mortgages are registered as collateral charge mortgages, meaning that if you have your auto loan, credit cards, everything at one bank, if the mortgage is collateralized, it means that if you miss a payment on one of those things, that all of it acts as collateral. So this can be very dangerous if you have your mortgage at a bank that does collateral charge mortgages. And let's touch on the very last one, the pros of using a mortgage broker. So the first pro of using a mortgage broker is it doesn't cost you anything. Now, it doesn't cost you anything either to go to a credit union or a bank, but the big difference is mortgage brokers have much more access to different lenders and rates and terms than the others, meaning that you're getting a more honest opinion on your overall situation because we're not just looking at a specific rate and product that we have to sell you. We're able to look around to different banks and lenders to say, where does this customer fit best? And it doesn't cost the borrower anything extra. Another pro of using a mortgage broker, and I might get in trouble from some of my colleagues about saying this, is that we do have more flexible hours. You can contact us on Saturday, Sunday, and most of us are going to pick up our phone and answer your questions or be able to start a mortgage application on the weekend. Whereas your other institutions, you might be dealing with more bankers' hours, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. When touching on pros of using a mortgage broker, let's also touch on what happens once you've had your mortgage for one term. If you're currently with an existing lender, they do not have any point or there's no reason for them to move you out of that bank. A mortgage broker gets incentivized to find you a better rate, a better product, to move you to a different lender, because we're going to get paid again on that transaction. Because of this, we have a much more deeper relationship with a client long term, so that we can help them along those different ways. And also we get benefited ourselves by being able to receive that lender fee every time we move someone for renewal. So you do want to be careful with this, because you want to make sure that they're not just moving you out of your existing lender who you're really happy with, who's offering you a great rate, just so they can get paid. You want to make sure that it makes sense for you and that you're ultimately happy with that renewal model. Mortgage brokers can also save you time and effort during the pre-approval process, because we can take all of your information and we can compare it to multiple lenders at once. This opposed to another lender where you might have to fill out a specific mortgage application at each bank where you might prospectively want to go with. In our case, you can fill out one application, one credit check, and give one set of documents, and we'll be able to compare it to multiple lenders. Lastly, on the pros list for using a mortgage broker, and I'll say this as an anecdotal point, we're typically going to be able to find you the best rate. Now, that's not always true, because like I said before, banks and credit unions can have really good offerings and really good products as well. But I would say in general, a broker is going to be able to find you a better rate just from the fact that they can offer you different rates and products from multiple lenders. All right, now touching on the cons of using a mortgage broker. There are none. I'm just kidding. There is a few that you should keep in mind as you're discussing with your mortgage broker. We are not a catch-all for all mortgage products and all mortgage situations. And so if you're finding frustration dealing with a mortgage broker, thinking that someone's going to have all of the answers, you are still going to need things like banks and credit unions to fill the gaps for certain mortgage products, rates, and terms. Another con of using a mortgage broker is that not all mortgage brokers are the same. Everyone has a different understanding of lender policy and also business practices. For the most part, every mortgage broker that I know does not charge for their services unless you're lining up a private mortgage. However, I have heard of different mortgage brokers charging some sort of application fee or non-refundable or refundable deposit, I should say. Make sure you're shopping around with a mortgage broker who you know, like, and trust. And your best bet is if you're going to get a warm referral from someone who's worked with that mortgage broker previously and they've had a really good experience. There you have it, my list of pros and cons for credit union, banks, and mortgage brokers. If there's a question or if there's a pro and con that I didn't touch on this list, make sure to include it in the comments of this video, and I will do my best to answer it. Thanks so much for checking this out. If you are in the mortgage market and you're looking for more information on Saskatchewan real estate, do us a favor, hit the subscribe button, and make sure to like this video to help boost the YouTube algorithm. Better yet, if you are looking for some help on your mortgage here in the province, I'd be more than happy to offer you my opinion on your mortgage situation, whether you're refinancing, renewing, or looking for that very first purchase. You can find a link to my application and my booking link in the show notes of this video. As always, leave me comments with your questions and I'd be happy to get back to them. Until next week, my name is Ron Caroni, your Saskatchewan mortgage professional. Bye for now.